Hello, welcome to the interview here on France 24. Well, from an uninhabited group of islands in the East China Sea to a provincial Chinese courtroom, two very different stories this week have offered a glimpse into the mysterious workings of China's Communist Party on the eve of a crucial leadership conference. Now, the standoff between China and its neighbor Japan over competing claims to the disputed islands has seen nationalist chest thumping on both sides. Now, meanwhile, the suspended death sentence that was handed down this week to the wife of a purged political leader caps a show trial that some reports suggest was very carefully scripted by the Communist Party. Now, are both of these stories simply a case of politics by other means in a China where the Communist Party is very much looking to boost its legitimacy? Well, here, hopefully with some insights today, my guest, Emmanuel Lincourt, welcome to the show.
Good evening.
You are the editor of the Monde Chinois. That's the French title. It's a quarterly, which in English is Chinese World, and which is self-explanatory. You're also chairman of the Department of Contemporary Studies at the Catholic University of Paris. Welcome. Obviously someone who follows China very closely. And our viewers, at least some of them, have probably been following this island dispute story this week. And I guess if you just landed from another planet and you look at this story, you say to yourself, they are arguing over a bunch of rocks, a remote bunch of rocks in the middle of the sea. Yet we've seen all of these furious demonstrations by nationalists, especially in big Chinese cities. Who are these people demonstrating? Why are they demonstrating?
Well, you watch these images. All the demonstrators are very young. I think they are students, and I think they are channeled by the Communist Party, because the Communist Party has always tried to chaperone this kind of demonstrations. It is a way to comfort the opinion in a nationalist way, but it is also a way to control also.
Are these people, you said students, are they paid to be there? Are they bussed in? Are they organized?
We don't know, but it is not the first time that such demonstrations arise concerning the Japanese and Chinese polemics, you see.
Of course. Well, the context there, we'll get to that in a second, but we've been seeing these protests, I'm talking about the Chinese side, in very big cities across China. But some of them are cities in which foreigners are not as present.
Yes, like Chengdu in Sichuan province is very clear. Apparently 10,000 demonstrators were there. Even in Shenzhen, many things were destroyed, like cars, Japanese cars. It is a way to remind to the Chinese opinion that there is still a very deep conflict of memories between the two countries, the two people, since the Second World War, in fact.
Of course, and now we don't really have to remind people there was, at one point Japan occupied China, Manchuria, right back in the 1930s. I guess that's still a very sore point. And they're using that today, I suppose, for propaganda purposes.
It is, because there was no work of reconciliation between the Germans and the French after the second conflict, as you know. And the Japanese officials never apologized for all the murderings committed by the
to
Japanese
this day,
army.
They've never officially formally apologized.
Never, even in South Korea, of course.
The Chinese, to this day also, they insist that they have a legitimate claim to this island. This is the government. The average Chinese person, you go to China quite often, do they really care about this issue? Not the ones demonstrating. There's 1 billion people in the country or more. Do they care?
They do care in a certain way, because speaking about the sovereignty of China is like speaking of the sovereignty of France at the end of the 19th century, about Alsace and Lorraine, you know. It is something very, very sensitive as an issue.
Alsace-Lorraine being right there on the German border, very disputed, yeah.
Absolutely. It is something the general opinion shares. And there is a kind of consensus between the Communist Party and the opinion about this issue.
So the people are behind a lot of the Communist Party, this nationalism. communism.
Especially the young people and especially the students.
So it's not just the Communist Party that's leading from the top down. There's a lot of sentiment in society itself.
Of course, and I think it is a paradox, but the Communist Party tries again to channel, to control these demonstrations, because you never know how it could happen. Maybe it could be stronger too.
Let's talk about control, but turning to the other topic I mentioned in the introduction, which was what some say was a show trial. It was a trial of Gu Kailai, who was the wife of a now purged political leader, Bo Xilai, and she was on trial for murder, a murder that she confessed in the courtroom. Was this case, some people say it wasn't really about that. This was not a murder trial. This was a trial to sideline her husband from politics, the communists trying to get him out of the way.
I think it was a parody of justice, because who has ever seen a trial lasting only 7 hours? And she was indeed condemned.
It was a one-day trial.
Only one day.
For murder, yeah.
But it's not the first time. We have to remember that the wife of Chairman Mao Zedong was condemned to death at the beginning, also in 1979. And there were a lot of media, even from outside. But I think she's a scapegoat in this affair, of course, because the Communist Party tries to avoid the polemic just before the so-called elections of the Politburo in October, next October.
And what's interesting is, like you said, it was a 7-hour trial. Her husband's name, he was not on trial. Maybe he will be at some point. Her husband's name was only mentioned once.
And there was a link between her name and his name once, indeed, between Bo Xilai and Gu Kailai. It was a way, by the way, for the Communist Party and the justice, which is not independent, of course, to establish an official link between these two affairs, you see. And it is a way also to marginalize Bo Xilai forever, certainly.
What, in your opinion, was Bo Xilai's greatest crime in the eyes of the party? He was known as very brash, very ambitious. He was the leader of this southwestern town of Chongqing. What did he do that scared the Communist Party leadership so much, or made them want to get him out of the way?
Because he was recognized as the leader of the so-called New Left tendency of the Communist Party. There was a strong nostalgia about the Cultural Revolution of Chairman Mao Zedong, and he was a man who could renew with this so-called reinvented tradition, by the way. But most of all, I think he was corrupted. He was corrupted, and the Communist Party didn't want to protect such an important
But he fought
man.
corrupt. He was known for fighting crime and corruption. That's how he made his reputation.
In Chongqing, with very hard manners, by using the mafia against the mafia, you see. So the Communist Party tried to purify also this kind of image. But most of all, and a lot of people ignore this matter of fact, Bo Xilai was the son of Bo Yibo, who was another communist apparatchik. And Bo Xilai, when he was very young, during the Cultural Revolution, at the end of the 60s, criticized his own father in public. And a lot of communist apparatchik never forgot.
Never got over that.
Yes,
So he was
absolutely. He was an outsider forever since the beginning.
He was a rogue, I guess, is the word we could use a little bit. Also, one thing, let me just suggest this to you. He was known as being a populist, very close to the people. Perhaps he was a champion of low-income housing, welfare provisions for the poor. Could that have been something to do with it? Because the party's becoming very rich these days, capitalist.
Yes, and he was also the incarnation of a so-called direct democracy. So he was close to the people indeed, and maybe the Communist Party was afraid of this.
Afraid of it because he represented a different potential direction.
Maybe.
For the party.
Maybe.
Right now. Let's look ahead a little bit. The conference we're talking about this, it's the 18th, I believe, Communist Party
Absolutely.
Congress coming up. We don't know exactly when it's going to happen yet.
No, everything is kept in secret. It is an old tendency of the Communist Party. It
Not to tell us too much, but what we do know is we are expecting what people are calling a once-in-a-decade transition of leadership. What are you expecting out of this, if anything?
There will be some changes among the leaders, by the way, because many young leaders are coming from the outside provinces, which is very new. Like the governor of Guangzhou, who will certainly be promoted in October to...
Very largest city in the south of China.
Yeah, absolutely. The name is Canton, in fact. And there will be very important decisions concerning the sustainable development also.
Development with, I guess, environmental factors taken into
Absolutely.
account. Very briefly, do you really think under one-party rule, there's still one party in China, any conference could bring about reform, what we might consider reform in China?
I think there will be reforms, by the way, because they have no choice. They are frightened by what happened recently in the Arabic world, you know. So they will certainly try to change deeply the system, by the way.
So this Communist Party is a little wary and vigilant going into this conference.
Absolutely.
Emmanuel Lancoa, thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there.
Thank you.
We've been talking very briefly about a country we could talk about for hours. Chinese Communist Party on the eve of a very big once-in-a-decade leadership transition. And we've been seeing a lot of nationalist flare-ups in China on the eve of this conference over disputed islands and in a Chinese courtroom this week. Thank you all very much for watching the interview here on France 24.